So right now, a special treat for you. I was lucky enough to interview Alberto Bravin from Big Big Train. You might well be aware of his music, and also author Andrew Wilde, who you might have seen on this channel. We've been talking about Live Aid and also prog rock on this channel this year. Anyway, they've collaborated to write a book called The Beatles on Track 1962 to 1966. It's due for release in February 2025, and we've got a very special interview with them where they talk in depth about that period of music for the Beatles. And it was an absolutely brilliant 40 minutes. We ran out of time on the Zoom. We could have gone on easily for another 2 hours. So, well, let's just go straight into it. There are so many more questions that we could have gone through. There's so many more questions I could have asked, so many more points we could have made. But enjoy the next 40 minutes and look out for the book, The Beatles on Track. It's on there on Amazon now. And many thanks to Andrew and Alberto for what, for me, was a really enjoyable interview to do.
Hello.
Hey, good morning, Alberto. You all right?
Good morning. I'm okay. Yeah. Well, good
Oh,
here.
I love the guitar there in the background. That's a
Oh
funky
yeah.
guitar, isn't it? That's an ace guitar.
Yeah, that's one of the two blue flower that I have. That's the Strat, and I have the Telly too.
Oh, hey, they look good. Oh,
Hello, both.
hey, morning. You all right?
I'm very
Hello,
well,
sir.
thank you, Alberto. How are you, Chris?
I just noticed all your cars in the background there, Andy.
Oh, yeah, it's I get royalties, you see, so I tend to let me find one. Let me find. These are all. Like you can get these monthly part work magazines where you buy the first one for £1 and everything after that is 60 pounds each, and after 5 years you've got a model of the Titanic or whatever, right? So there was Alberto's thinking, where is this going? So quite a few years ago, there was one of these series whereby you could get these very high quality. I'm going to put this on the screen now and see if you can see it. Right,
Oh, beautiful.
it's very high
Is that the one from The
quality.
Spy Who Loved Me?
No, it's the one from For Your Eyes Only.
Oh, so close.
Right. So I've got the others from The Spy Who Loved Me over here.
Of
So
course.
there was
Like
over
you
the
do.
course of, oh, like you do. So there was something like 150 of these released like every week over the course of months and months and years, and they've become quite collector's items. So I bought one. The first one I got was the little car in You Only Live Twice, the tiny little sports car that if you remember the film, and it's in here somewhere. And I started to get royalties, and I started to thought I'll get a couple more of those. Ended up I've got 65 of them here now, and they're about 20 quid each. So
Oh my God.
they're all Bond cars in very high resolution stuff.
No, no. I mean, do you have a Porsche 356?
Was that in one of the Bond films, Albert?
No,
Albie?
no,
There also. I don't think he ever drove a Porsche, did he? Because
no.
it was
It
always
didn't.
Aston Martin and
Aston
Bentley and
Martin. Yeah,
stuff.
of
Yeah,
course, of course.
yeah.
Oh,
No.
The jingoistic British cars,
No,
obviously.
yeah. That was my dad's car before I was born.
Oh
And he
wow!
sold it.
oh.
When he was in London or afterwards.
No, in Italy, yeah. He had a red one. I don't know
Oh
if you
wow!
know the model, but it's amazing. Yeah,
Oh, I'm
Oh.
impressed.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
impressed.
yeah.
Yeah. So a very quick bit of background for you, Chris, before we start.
Yeah,
So
go for it.
I do a little bit of work for Big Big Train for Alberto's band, and they're, the band's management company are very keen to do very good value and detailed tour programs. So if you went to see the band on tour, you could buy a tour program, and it's like half an inch thick, full of stuff, really good. And
Yeah.
I interviewed all of the band. When was it, Alberto? About a year ago, maybe
It was at least 1 year
something
ago.
like that. Yeah, and we did a 20 questions, a dead simple, old fashioned 20 questions,
Yeah.
and I asked all the band the same questions. And then they came back. The answers came back, and I converted them into a 6-page feature for the program. Right? That was the catalyst. And I can't remember the exact questions, but one of them was dead. It was dead simple. It wasn't like what's your favorite color, but it wasn't much more advanced than that. And Alberto came back and told of his love for, in particular, amongst many others, Queen and the Beatles.
Yeah.
There were lots of others as well, weren't there, Alberto, as well, Jellyfish and Black Sabbath and others that we spoke about. And my ears kind of pricked up because I wrote a book about Queen 6 or 7 years ago. I still haven't sent you a copy of that, Albie. I will.
Oh, yeah.
And I was starting to think about whether to do a book on the Beatles music because Stephen Lamb, our publisher, has done 120 in this series, but he'd always kind of held back because there's been thousands of books about the Beatles. What can we do that's new? So I went to him and said, I think I've got a plan here, and I think I'd like to see whether Alberto from Big Big Train would like to be involved as well, because I think he'd have a different perspective. He's a professional musician.
Sort of.
You know, he was in his Beatles tribute band for quite a few years.
Yeah.
So maybe if we worked out how to work together, we could build a book from that perspective. And our objective always was to find a way to express probably two things. Firstly, why we both still love the music after so many years of listening.
Yeah.
And why these songs worked the way they did from a not as much from a social perspective, but from a musical and a progression of their skills perspective, if that kind of makes sense. And so I did the kind of background research, listened to obviously all the songs again, wrote notes around how they impacted me. And in parallel, Alberto would do the same. We'd choose a particular album, he'd listen to it and write what affected it from his perspective. And then how many calls did we do, Albie? It was lots, wasn't it? We basically sat on Zoom calls and chatted.
Yeah, chatted for, I don't know, an hour, but more.
Maybe an hour and a half for each album.
More, yeah, about it. Yeah.
And then I'd go away and write up. I mean,
Yeah.
Alberto's extremely fluent in English, but it's not his first language, right? So
No.
I'd go away and write what I thought we talked about, and then send it back to Alberto, and he'd correct it and add some things. And eventually, over time, and it took a few months, didn't it? We managed to get the book written, and in the course of that, we decided it should probably be 2 volumes. So there'll be another volume next time.
There was too much stuff to talk about.
There was too much stuff to talk about. So in the end, the decision to split was pretty arbitrary, but because of the Red Album and the Blue Album, it seemed to make sense to finish at the end of '66. So that's what we've got so far. That's your background. That was quite good.
I think I might. I think use that. I think that.
Yeah, chop that up.
Again, we're done. I think.
So yes, what we did was both of us listened independently to every Beatles song from '62 to '66. We're only looking at the EMI release. It's here, and then we chatted about them at length about why they affected us, why they're important, and what the songs, or in particular these kind of 15, how each of them marked, if you like, a turning point or a milestone in the way that the music came through. Because if you start with Love Me Do and then you listen to Tomorrow Never Knows, it doesn't sound like the same band. However, if you take certain steps on the way through, you can see that progression. And that was the principle behind the book. We had a good time, and we're looking forward to doing the next one, which will start in the new year, I think.
I was just going to say, have you started the second one yet?
I've done some research, but we haven't had any chats yet.
I started to listen to because listening for this project. I mean, it was it was a completely different experience than listen to the Beatles music. I mean, because you can listen to enjoy just to listen because you like it. Then you can listen to the Beatles music to study the music, as I did for, I don't know, I had years and years ago, I had this tribute band, the Beatles tribute band, that we played a lot for many years. And so that was another approach to the music, just to listen just write down everything and understand what, I don't know, what shape of the chords were, or I don't know, the voicings or whatever, the words and stuff. But here it was like again a different approach, because you listen to okay, I need to find something that was maybe that was not written yet, or I don't know if we achieved.
I don't know that
this.
either, but,
but
I think we
know.
did.
But I think there is a couple of moments that both we look at each other and said, okay, I never thought about this, because maybe because I don't know, I listen to the songs and with the lyrics maybe in front of me, and I never thought about the lyrics and the year that the song was written. And can you say this in the lyrics? They couldn't say something. They couldn't talk about some themes or something. So they tried maybe in a natural way. Not it was not thought, but it was just in a natural way. Maybe Lennon just wrote lyrics talking about deep stuff in the early years, and it sounds just like a silly happy song. It's not.
There's a really good example on "Please Please Me." It's a song called "There's a Place," which is not one of the best known songs by the band, even on that album. "There's a Place." It's the last song but one on "Please Please Me." Right?
It's a deep cut, maybe.
It might be. You could call it that, Albie. Yeah, but it's anxious. It's tense, and they're already moving beyond this kind of boy meets girl subject matter, right? So the first really important song we identified was "I Saw Her Standing There." Right, track one, album one, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. And Albie called it it's like a slap in the face, like a wake up. Listen to us. This is how great we are. Don't forget, it's a song that they wrote themselves. Nobody in 1962, 63 was writing their own material. There were no other four-piece bands. There were none. There was the Shadows. That was it. There were none others. The Beatles absolutely broke the mold, right? So sort of standing there. Yeah, it's kind of a sassy boy meets girl song, you know. Opening line, she was just 17, if you know what I mean. But, you know,
now we have the rappers.
Yeah.
But they were actually, if you think about it, and I don't know if you saw it. I saw it yesterday. The new Scorsese Beatles 64.
I have not seen it yet.
Not seen it yet.
Okay, it's amazing. And in America, we're talking in 64, so it was a little bit delayed, of course, because in the UK everything was a little bit earlier, but you can tell because they knew Elvis, of course, so they knew the sexual kind of the moves and the stuff. There was something, and they were a little bit cleaner in the dressing and in the moves and the stuff, but still there was something. There was something sexual, I think, about the music and about the rhythm and the stuff, and the girls were crazy. I mean, it was crazy, and you can see in the movie, it's incredible, the reactions. And there were like a couple of people who were like Bernstein daughter that said like there was nothing before that. We had no idea what it was. And Love Me Do or She Loves You, I don't know I don't remember the first single in the US, but they just went crazy because there was nothing like that, and there's people crying talking about it.
Yeah, this
just
this
getting
this is what we forget about, because none of us was there at the time, right?
no,
We're all
no,
You
too
can't
young for that.
imagine what it would have been like.
So we can't imagine what it would have
no,
been like.
you cannot imagine. You can tell there is like I don't want to spoil stuff, but in the Beatles movie, but I mean, but you can see there is like a family in the kitchen watching the TV and watching Ed Sullivan show,
Mhm.
and they are like with with the eyes opened, and there's like a young girl, and she's there's something like this. It's completely new. It's complete. It's crazy. Like she's like glue in like she cannot move the eyes on the by from the TV just to see that. And I mean, the audio was bad. It was everything was black and white and a little blurry, so it was not a 4K cinema experience with the Dolby Atmos. So everything it's you need to put it in the context, and still she never seen something like that. So it's crazy. It's crazy.
You
It's
can't
emotional.
imagine like you say what it was like at the time. I mean, especially there's a bit that you touch on at the start of the book where you say what the UK charts were like, and you had most of it was solo artists. I think you had
Yeah,
bands such as the Springfields, but
yeah.
it was just unheard of.
It was absolutely unheard of. Completely right.
Oh yeah.
Which is why today I think it's still resonates. There's the word.
Resonates. We'll go with
Thank you.
that.
So sorry, Albie.
Yeah.
You want to say something?
No, but yeah, I mean, it is because if you think about in the US, you have the bands because there were like the Isley Brothers,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
the Beatles, they were covering their songs. So, but that those versions are not resonating
Very good.
as the Beatles versions.
Mm.
So there was something in their, I don't know, characters, way to play, moment, or something that just it was something special there,
It
and
was.
still is. So that it's the
And I think what we were able to draw out, Chris, was an undercurrent of emotion that isn't necessarily very obvious unless you study the songs in a bit more depth. So we were talking about I Saw Her Standing There, which is very much a song about sex, no question.
it is.
And then by the end of the same album, There's a Place, which is a song we spoke about a few minutes ago. You think of the opening line, there's a place where I can go when I feel low, when I feel blue. Those are the opening lines of that song, which is extremely unusual for this type of supposed boy meets girl subject matter.
Yeah.
Because there were lots of songs in those early years where you can sense this undercurrent of I won't say depression, I think that's probably too harsh a word, but dissatisfaction.
Well, it will become depression in in a couple of years.
Yeah,
Certainly by Help, I think it's more you could say with the lyrics. It's probably more visible. The same kind of but what other songs would you say? You said there was a kind of like an arc of songs that you say from this time. Which other songs have you picked out that stood out for you when you were going back to research the book, both of you?
Absolutely. So in the early years, sort of 62, 63, there are two very obvious songs that are very clear milestones, which is She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand. Two massive, massive hit singles. I think She Loves You is just pop perfection. It thrills, it surprises even now. And again, when Albie said it's like a slap in the face for I Saw Her Standing There, She Loves You as well. It starts with those three tom-toms and bang, it's in. And it lasts for 2 minutes, 21 seconds. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the whole song.
The chorus is just boom. It's just in your face. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you think about it, it's an explosion, and so it's amazing. Now it sounds about the Beatles. Sometimes the Beatles, like the sound of the Beatles, sometimes it sounds like for the people who are the people not into the Beatles, or that will not buy our book.
Maybe they will. Maybe we can convert them, Albert.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it sounds simple. It sounds it's little songs, like songwriters kind of stuff. And I know a lot of people that think about the Beatles like that, like it's it's just a couple of simple songs. It's not, because if you put it in the context, I mean, She Loves You, it's like a heavy metal song now. I mean, if it's with the guitars and with vocals and the drums, it's just rocking. I mean, of course they had like the equipment and the gear that they had at the moment. It's not what we have now, but I mean, for me, it still sounds crazy powerful.
Just whilst I remember, I think there was a bit that you touched on in your book that where it was to do with the John Lennon pen song, and you said that John Lennon had repeated the same verse. I think it was. I can't remember which song it was. Was this a common thing with Lennon songs? Because I had never realised that.
No, not common at all. And the reason was he wrote that song. We're talking here about "I'm Happy Just to Dance with You," if I remember.
Oh yeah,
right? That was it.
The same verse is repeated. And it's 3 times in the song, but he wrote that specifically for George Harrison to sing. And very often he would, I'm generalising here, but very often Lennon felt he was a little bit forced to have to write a song for George, because George at that point wasn't writing his own material. So he'd give him the stuff that he just didn't want to work very hard with. So if you listen to, I think it's "I'm Happy Just to Dance with You," it's the same verse 3 times. It's not one of the great ones.
But you mentioned the B-sides as well. I think there's some great B-sides from that early period.
They're all great.
They're brilliant.
Oh yeah,
they're all great. If you ask me later which my favourite Beatles song is from this period, you might get a B-side as an answer. But yes, bringing in the way that Lennon wrote his material is interesting, because the other song in that early period that we identified as being important was a song from with the Beatles called "Not a Second Time." Again, not a particularly well-known song. It's tucked at the bottom of side 2 of with the Beatles. But if you analyze it from a musical perspective, it's got a 14-bar verse and a 10-bar chorus. Now, those of you who know music will think, really? I thought everything was in 4s and 8s, but this one, it's a 14-bar verse and a 10-bar chorus, because Lennon would write utterly instinctively with total disregard for what you might call a musical rule, whereby you might have an 8-bar verse.
Typical. That's typical.
It is typical, absolutely typical. But this was the first time in "Not a Second Time" where that was evident in the songs that he wrote.
Yeah.
And quite soon, 3 or 4 years later, you'd get the irregularity of a song like "Happiness Is a Warm Gun" or "Strawberry Fields Forever," and this is the seed of that "Not a Second Time" from with the Beatles.
Have you heard Robert Palmer's cover of that song?
No, I don't think so. We should find that one.
It's I want to say a bit electronic. It's from his, I don't know if it's from his Gary Newman days, but I really like that version. I love Robert Palmer anyway, but it takes some work to beat the Beatles. But I think I prefer Robert Palmer's version. Yeah, there's your homework.
That's fair. So you can see that by the end of 1963, really, really early, we have a song like "There's a Place," which goes away from the regular lovey-dovey subject matter, and a song like "Not a Second Time," which breaks down the musical rules, and big, massive hits like "I Want to Hold Your Hand." Already, by the end of their first year of recording, they were completely breaking the rules. And then as we move into the middle period, 64, 65, 66, then I don't think they could do almost anything wrong in that period. And I'll just give you a list of songs from 1964, right? "If I Fell," "And I Love Her," "Things We Said Today," "I Feel Fine," "No Reply." Shall I carry on? That's just 5 from 1 year.
It's crazy.
How did they do it? I mean, just like you say, one after the other.
because they were very, very fine songwriters and musicians.
They were.
There's no other way of saying it.
We were sometimes we were laughing about. I always have the theory that that they were really better musician than what they say. I mean, because Paul McCartney always say, "I don't know, I'm not a musician. I don't know music. I don't know theory. I don't know something." There is something in the songwriting that it's so, I don't know, it's so perfect and so well crafted.
Yeah.
That they're I think it's not true. It's Paul McCartney knows harmony, knows music theory. He knows something, because with Lennon you can say, because there is like 14 bars stuff. It's more like like instinct writing. Like he was writing more of he had like maybe some line in mind, some vocal line, so he was writing on the vocal line. So of course, if it's a longer vocal line, sometimes the bars were like odd numbers. But in the McCartney thing, in the McCartney songwriting, you can really hear there is something there that maybe he was not he didn't study music, but he was raised in a place, in a home maybe, where music were really important, and he had something inside of him with that he could write that kind of music that at
Absolutely.
that level.
It's an amazing gift, whatever it is.
I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Andrew, I have to ask you,
go on,
because it mentions at the start of your book, you've got every single concert and outtake. So I suppose when the 62 to 66 albums get re-released by Giles Martin, as I imagine they will at one point, you must have high expectations for what extra songs should be on there.
So there aren't that many extra tracks that we haven't heard. So it's not like they recorded 2 or 3 extra songs for Please Please Me that we haven't heard. Those don't exist. But what do exist, and in extremely good quality, are multiple takes of the songs that we know, which is great from a scholar's perspective. So I saw her standing there, for example. I think from memory, the release take is take 9, as I remember. Don't write to me if I've got that wrong. But
everybody is really mad with you.
I know. Sorry,
I know. Papers out now.
It's actually take 12, whatever. But there are sessions where you can hear the band working in the studio on takes 1 to 8 in working out the arrangement and then talking to each other and how to do it. Those have all been leaked from EMI's archives over the years. So there are demos, there were home recordings. I've got something like 65 complete Beatles concerts that were recorded across that period, dating right back to the very first. There are actually recordings from 1956 of the Beatles playing, or the Quarrymen as they were at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And gradually, yes, over the last 25 years, I've collected copies of all of those and archive them into a database so that when we do a project like this, we can find them quickly.
Are you hoping for an official release, though, of something you've got in, that's been restored in pristine quality, of something you think, oh, that'd sound amazing if Giles Martin can get his hands on it, or not?
I don't think so. We have to remember that the first 4 or 5 albums were recorded mostly on 2-track and 4-track. So there isn't that much that can be done to separate them out and remix them.
Oh, you can now.
Yep. We could probably discuss this half the day, but when you've got 2 guitars, bass drum and vocals, and it's already mixed in stereo, what is there to be done? But
I mean, I don't know if it's a rumor, but I read somewhere that Peter Jackson, the director, he has bought the, I don't know, the copyrights or something, or the rights for the early live recordings.
Yes, that's true, Alberto.
That's
yes, so the
right.
the ones recorded in Hamburg at the Star Club.
The Hamburg.
Wow, so we might see something released of those then, you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. But if you think about it now with AI, that we are not going to talk about it in this because we're going really deep, and it's super weird. But I mean, with a really easy app like Logic Pro. I mean, it's a 100 quid app for DAW music recording. You can separate the tracks with a click on a stereo thing or a mono thing. You can have drums, bass, guitars, vocals, stuff with just a click. It's just a consumer app. So think about what Peter Jackson can have, or Josh Martin.
To it.
Or, I mean, and what they can do. They did it with Get Back. I mean, you could hear, and also with the Beatles 64, the new one. You can all the video. It's just done with the camera with the guy just, and the audio was recorded to tape it with a little microphone on the road, but you can hear the vocal, all the words and all the stuff. It's like pristine. So I mean, they did like a clean. I don't know how they clean it up or they're doing stuff, but it's a thing that you can do. Is it?
Well, maybe we'll see. I mean, I prefer the mono anyway.
Is it okay?
I'm conscious we've only got about 7 minutes, so I'll just ask a couple of questions I was going to squeeze in, if that's all right. In the bit of the book, you constantly say, I'd say is fair, you constantly say that mono sounds better. So for both of you, why does mono sound better?
Do you want to go first, Alberto?
Well, I mean, first of all, it was mixed like that. I mean, it was thought they were thinking with the mono in their mind, and sometimes when you do the stereo mix at the time, it was like, wow, I can put stuff in the left and in the right. Okay, cool. Let's put the kick in the left and the vocals in the right. And they were like the spread. It's funny, and it's and it's a nice effect. But sometimes with the mono mix, you can really hear the beat and the groove and the stuff that sometimes with the stereo you lose a little bit.
I remember when I had the 62 to 66 cassette growing up, and you're right, if you put it on the left-hand side through your headphones, you'd hear just the instruments, and on the right-hand side, I think it was just the vocals all the other way around. And it was a weird experience.
Yeah, that was a limitation of the way those songs were recorded, for starters. So they'd record them very often in 2-track and sometimes in 4-track. So that was it. They'd have basically the vocals on two tracks of the recording equipment and the instruments on the other, and to separate them out, you're quite right, they'd throw all the vocals either hard right or hard left, and all the instruments hard right or hard left, and it sounds absolutely awful. It really sounds terrible.
Tambourine with the vocals.
This is the reason why when the compact disc came out in the 80s, that some of the albums were remixed to avoid that problem. So Rubber Soul was remixed, and Help was remixed to balance out the stereo to make it more listenable. But if you want to really hear the sound and the power of the Beatles in this period, She Loves You, mono.
Mono, yeah.
That's a good recommendation. So, Andrew and Alberto, we get I think is it just over 100 songs we get in this first volume? Then is it?
Feels about right.
Where does the first volume end? So to give us a
it ends in it ends with the beginning of the band starting to record the songs that became the Sgt. Pepper. So it ends at the end of 1966. So we spoke about early Beatlemania and then the middle period in 64, and then we've had no time to talk about my favorite period, 65 into 66, where we've got the Help album, the Rubber Soul album, the Revolver album, which we could talk to you about the whole day long. But there was a fundamental shift because in September 1966, the Beatles finished touring. They didn't tour anymore, and they concentrated entirely on recording in the studio and completely reinvented the way that they would record songs. And that's where, if you think they ripped up the rule book with Revolver, which is a staggeringly good album. What did they do next? And they moved into Sgt. Pepper. So when we write the second book, we'll start with Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, and the Sgt. Pepper album, and see that not only through to the end of their active life, but we'll talk a little bit about what's happened since with the Live at the BBC album, Love album, anthology albums. We'll talk about all of that in volume 2 as well.
Alberto, was it quite interesting to try and listen to their influences then on those later albums such as Help and Rubber Soul?
Oh well, yeah. And the funny thing that we I think we said, I don't know if I said it, but I think we agree that the gap between all the first albums and Revolver, it's huge, and the Revolver to Sgt. Pepper, it's not that huge,
not that much.
Revolver, it's just everybody talk about Sgt. Pepper as one of the greatest albums of history of music. Agree, okay, but if you listen to Revolver with Rubber Soul, the gap between those two albums, it's like it's another band. It's completely another band. So I think Revolver, maybe it's the more revolutionary album there, maybe more than Sgt. Pepper.
Absolutely agree. There's a quote I have from David Quantick. David Quantick is a journalist. And he said this. I'll just read this out. There's a case to be made that the Beatles went on to do Sgt. Pepper because there was nowhere else to go but too far. But then he says, with Revolver, they had mapped out the pop universe so perfectly that all they could do was tear it up and start again.
It's perfect, absolutely. And I think Revolver, it's one of the greatest Beatles album. Not my favorite, but one of the greatest.
Oh, because your favorite's in volume 2, isn't it, Alberto? So which we haven't written yet, which we haven't done. But yes, and I kind of mentioned earlier, Chris, that if you were to ask me, you can ask Albie the same question.
Oh yeah, go on. What's your favorite song?
My favorite song from this period, from 62 to 66, is a B-side called Rain, which was the B-side of Paperback Writer. And I remember the first time I heard the song Rain, it's got backward masking, it's intense, it's original, it's got the world's greatest drummer doing his best ever drumming performance. We love Ringo and we'll have nothing said against him. And even today, it's such an intense listening experience, this song called Rain. It's 2.5 minutes long, and it's like a rush of adrenaline. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And
Alberto, what would your pick be, if I can ask you very quickly? Sorry, before the time runs out.
Can't remember what I said.
Shall I remind you what you said about this period?
I don't know. In my top 20, I don't know. Can't remember. Tomorrow Never Knows. Maybe it's in there in my top 20.
That's a good pick if it is.
I don't know. I can't remember, but it changed. I mean, it changes. I mean, every day you can say like, "Oh yeah, I love that. I love wow," or Norwegian Wood, wow. And then you go, "Oh, a song is standing there. It's an amazing song." And then, I don't know. It's
Thank you both of you for coming on. The Beatles on track 1962 to 66. Andy and Alberto, we will look out for volume 2 as well. And
yeah, volume 1's available at the end of February. This in 25.
Thank you both. You good luck with the volume 1.
Awesome.